The purpose of this video is to help people who can drive well, but they can't pass their test. I decided to share these few tips with you because I've successfully taught many hundreds of people who had the same problem, and at some point they overcame all of those issues and passed their driving assessment without major trouble. So I'm referring specifically to those people who can drive well. They're prepared, but the moment they sit in a car with the examiner, they basically lose it. So we have to know that the anxiety is definitely number one culprit when it comes to not being able to execute the test to the end. Now, the expectations play a big part in not succeeding, because there's one place that disappointment comes from, which is expectation. So, sometimes people are sensitive to those expectations, and when they see that they are about to do something wrong, they make it even worse. So in my experience, I've actually asked people to analyse things the evening before the driving assessment. On several occasions, I asked people to go through the process of thinking where they will know what the realistic expectation about, the driving assessment the next day will be based on how they believe they're doing. Just once again, I'm talking about people who can drive, who are prepared, they've had many hours of practice and they can drive without pressure, but as soon as the examiner sits in the car with them, they will basically lose that ability to execute things to the standard. If you ask yourself honestly, what is it that's stopping you from succeeding? It's not that difficult. You've done it many, many times and you can do it really well without any problems whatsoever. But when the assessor is in the car with you, when you know that you're being judged, problems occur. Now, number one thing that people would ask themselves very honestly, what's going to happen after the test in any case? So regardless of what the result is, what's going to happen? So most people would say, well, I'm going to go back home. I'm going to have lunch, dinner. I'm just going to take my dog for a walk. Just a regular, normal stuff that anyone does on any day, basically. So when you clear that out of the way, then I would ask them the question. So can you write down in big letters what are the three possible scenarios? I'm talking about the results. So what are the three possible scenarios about results? And most people would say, okay, so the best case scenario would be to pass, okay, with a clean sheet. You pass with clean sheet. So that would be absolutely amazing, no errors whatsoever. So you pass the assessment, that's number one scenario. So is it possible? Yeah, we have clean sheet passes every single week, and that is not impossible. That they're real people, people who take our advice, and that's not difficult to achieve. Now, the second case scenario, if you ask yourself, what's the worst case scenario? What can happen? What's the worst case scenario? Well, most people would say, oh, look, I'd really fail on something stupid, I would feel miserable after the assessment. So, and if you write it down in big block letters, failed on something stupid. Okay, so that's not excluded. So number three scenario for those who can drive pretty well would be to pass with a few minor errors. And that's possibly the most common case, to pass with minor errors. So again, in all of these situations, you will go back home. You'll go about your normal life. So be honest with yourself and see what are the potential scenarios, and be prepared. So write it down in big block letters. Be honest with yourself. And if you can live with either of these scenarios, that shouldn't create so much of an anxiety so you basically lose it on the day. Also, when people understand that they have ability to drive perfectly and safely, if we ask somebody Do you believe that you can drive perfectly for 60 seconds at any given time, in any given, circumstances? Most people will say, yeah, 60 seconds, it's a minute, I can definitely drive perfectly, yeah. So why don't you simply do it 30 times in a row? So that would be about half an hour. Driving assessment's gone in half an hour. So if you can drive without making any major errors for 60 seconds, just do it 30 times in a row, and that would be a pass. This type of approach, when you don't sort of look at results too much, but how you carry out everything that you're asked to do, will definitely decrease the amount of anxiety, and you will also collect more points. So now, once you know how to try and give it another go, it's very simple. Just make sure that you turn your knowledge to practice, and this is exactly how. You've got to understand that there are certain scenarios that can happen, but if you can live with that, we are pretty sure that you are going to be able to handle every task that you're given on the day of a driving assessment. We've seen it many hundreds of times with people who were extraordinarily nervous but still managed to pass without almost any mistakes. I was motivated to shoot this video when I bumped into one of our students. I believe he's 19 now, and he started a couple of years ago, but look, he hasn't done many tests, okay? So there was a bit of an issue with consistency as well, so he would sort of stop driving for a while and then, start again. He's failed a few times. The interesting thing is he can drive really well. If he's not put to the test by the Department of Transport, if there's nobody with the blue shirt sitting next to him, he's fine. He can drive for literally a couple of hours, no mistakes. But the problem is, when the assessor sits in the car with him, he just completely loses it. He just does not have that ability because he's basically sabotaged himself, which he admits, okay? So when he believes that there's a potential that he's going to do something wrong, he always does it. But when he doesn't think about it, it's a completely different story. When you walk down the street, do you really calculate and plan your steps? You don't, because you are subconsciously competent. So you know that you know how to do it and you don't think about it. So try to take the same approach, understanding what are the potential possible scenarios and also that you can live with all of those outcomes. You simply will feel more at ease and less anxious and nervous. So thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.